What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and today we are joined by Millsy, of course, and we've got a special guest on. We've got Pat Nevin. He's come on. He's going to discuss a few things Everton. Very grateful to Matisse, so a little shout out to Matisse because he enabled me to get in touch with Pat, and Pat is now sitting with us today. First of all, Pat, how are you, sir?
Fabulously well. I mean, I was going to say I'm enjoying retirement, but I'm not retired. I'm working really, not hard, but I'm doing a lot of work just now. So last week was mental. I was down in London twice. I was doing Chelsea game. Before that, I was doing Man City over in Bruges. I've been up and down twice to London. In between that, I did a book festival in the Scottish Borders where I live. So I'm having this wild time. The weekend I'm doing Man City ladies against Chelsea ladies, and then the next day I'm doing Scotland. So keeping myself a wee bit busy, and in the midst of it also writing books, which is great fun. So and a lot of Everton fans, if any Everton fans watching or listening who actually bought my book, The Accidental Football, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Most people seem to. So as you can tell, quite busy watching football and enjoying it.
Yeah, well, of course, and there will be a link to. Where's the best place for them to get your book? Is it Amazon or
Anywhere you get it, Amazon, you get it in Waterstones, you name it. And you know me, indie, so indie bookshops too. But anyway,
That's fine. The link will be in the description, guys, and obviously go get yourself Pat's book. Pat, I wanted to start with a question about when you joined Everton. So I think you joined Everton in '88, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not pretty good with dates, but yeah, I guess so.
and Everton had gone through that period of real success. And to be honest, I was born in '92, so I'm not going to probably be the right person to ask this. Mills is probably the right person to ask this. But did you join Everton thinking league titles? You know, what made you pick Everton? Because I know you were really successful at Chelsea. You were highly thought of. Why Everton?
Well, I've been at Chelsea, and I got to play the year twice down there, and they were a decent team. But in those days, going Chelsea to Everton was a massive jump up in standard, a massive jump up. I mean, Everton were a team that were winning titles, European competitions, and I played against them often enough, so I know how good they were. And I knew I was leaving Chelsea, and I'd actually agreed to go to Paris Saint-Germain. And right at the last minute, I got a call from Colin Harvey. I got a call. I didn't get the call. My flatmate got a call. I was on a beach with my girlfriend stroke wife to be. It's in a rough part of Corfu. And the guy came running down from the taverna. I said, Mr. Nevin, phone call. And I went up, and it was my flatmate saying, Everton said they want to buy you. And I went, tell them I'll come. I'll do it. Phone down. That was it. That was the level of the kind of conversation. And Colin Harvey phoned my flat that night to find out what my answer had been. And Peter, my flatmate, said, yeah, Pat said he'll come. He said, well, we haven't talked money or anything. He goes, nah, Pat doesn't really think about money, just it's Everton, so yeah, he'll come. And like Colin just went, that's weird, but I like it. And it was that easy. So coming to Everton was, a lot of the positives were brilliant team, great players. They were obviously going for it because they bought Tony Cottee, who was the most expensive player in British history at the time. That week, they'd spent a lot of money on me, Stuart McCall, Neil McDonald, and they had a right good bunch of players there as well. Also, I played at Goodison, and I absolutely loved the place. I thought, yeah. So it wasn't difficult. There's lots of things about Goodison. Like, you would play most games at most grounds, and by November, they were absolute mud heaps and they were rubbish. Everton, Goodison, absolutely beautiful. I'm thinking, yeah, I can go for that. And in the first game I played, we beat Newcastle 4-0. It remains to this day one of my favourite memories in my entire career, because I thought, boy, have I done a good thing here. Oh, this is class. The quality of players we've got, the new ones we brought in, all it needed was for them to gel well, and we would be unstoppable. Unfortunately, they didn't gel.
Was that the game that Tony Cottee scored a hat-trick, if I remember right, yeah?
Yeah, and it was extraordinary because the noise that day, and I'd left Chelsea where, as you say, it was very popular down there, and I thought, well, I need to sort of rebuild it. And by halfway through the game, every time we get the ball, the place just it roared, and we kind of go, yeah, real buzz. I mean, I had a decent game that day, a good game, but I just thought it honestly, it couldn't have been a better start. And unfortunately for me, 3 games later, my cruciate was snapped. Kind of knackered things. It was against Nottingham Forest, so it was a kind of difficult thing. I mean, it's funny writing about it because you tend to live your career, but you never look back. So it's actually only recently that I've really considered it when I was writing that book and writing about all the times at Everton. And to be honest, people encapsulate it was a difficult time. Yeah, it was, because our standards were high. So we were coming in 5th or 6th and getting to the FA Cup final and getting beat by, I can't remember who beat us in the cup final. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither.
Yeah, me neither. After extra time. And that was thought as a disastrous season for us. And it just shows you the standards that we were aiming for. And we should have done better than that. So, but I look back in my time there as brilliant times. It's great people, made so incredibly welcome. And the fact that Everton fans seem to like my style, certainly for the first two and a bit years, it was a really good time. It's a shame.
But I was there. I was there. My dad took me, but when you were playing that, and believe me, I'm not just saying it because you're on the show. You were a real fan favourite. The fans appreciated you because you worked hard. You were a game changer. Just going back to what Mike asked there, when you came in with a bunch of players, you came in with Tony Cottee, Neil McDonald, Stuart McCall. In hindsight, not that you can change this, was that harder for you to come in as a group of players opposed to maybe just yourself?
No, it shouldn't be, because that happens in quite a lot of clubs, and there were good players, and there were good players there. The difficulty was there was a schism. There was the old guys and there was the new guys. Now, I didn't really actually take part in that. The new guys just wasn't before there. Then we bought Martin Keown, then we bought Mike Newell, and then we bought Norman Whiteside. And there was, Everton were a club that bought right good players. But the old guard and the new guard had to mesh better than they actually did. Now, in actual fact, I got on great with everybody, and old, new, I didn't care. But it just never sort of melded. And some of the guys I played with there, like Ian Snodden, by the way, I mean, he's still involved with Everton quite a lot.
Yeah,
you kind of need to play with players sometimes to know how good they were. And he was absolutely brilliant. But again, a player who got injured and it slowed him down a wee bit. What a player he was. He's one of those guys, it's a bit like Godfrey. No matter where you play him. Go and play him in right back, centre back, left back, centre midfield. It doesn't matter. He's still one of the best players in the team. So we had a lot of good players, but just getting that to meld together, it was beyond Colin, and to get it to the level it should have got to. And that was always the sadness of it, that we should have done better than we did. It wasn't through lack of effort from some of us anyway. And that was, there'd always be a little tiny cloud over it, but it's not a cloud against Everton Football Club. It's a cloud against, we should have given the fans better. And some of the things, I wrote about it an awful lot in the book. There were specific moments. There was a game down at West Ham. Remember, after we played Liverpool 4-4, amazing game in the cup, and then we beat them over there. It was the third game of the FA Cup. Phenomenal memories. And then the next round, we've got West Ham, and we should hammer them, and we get beat. And that was the day that Howard and I didn't quite see eye to eye. We made it up later. We were great friends later, but I kind of lost it a wee bit because I thought we were a wee bit let down at that point in time. But there you go. There's all these memories, because we should have won the cup that year, and that would have been brilliant, because that might have brought the group together.
Do you when you look at this current Everton team, and obviously football's very different to what it was, early 90s, late 80s. It seems the style's completely different. When I watch an old game compared to when I watch a game now, it's almost like completely different. But you played in essentially one of the very close best teams in Everton's history. Really, you were literally there with the European, Cup winners and FA Cup winners, league winners. You were in the same squad a lot of those players. What do the current bunch need to finally progress?
It's very hard to compare, and I don't think it's helpful a lot of the time to compare, because as you say, the style of the game's changed a great deal. Certainly, I thought when I was playing in the top level of English football at the time, I didn't think it was very good. I know it sounds horrible, but there was a lot of long ball football happening. So some teams were not doing it as much, but a lot of the teams were. And it's not just me that thought that. Everybody outside England thought that. Even the Scots thought that. Sheffield Wednesday to Palaces. It was a bit tiresome, especially if you were trying to play a more technical game in the midst of it all. So, I wouldn't compare it because it's a different type. It's not completely different, but certainly technically there have been a lot of differences. And certainly I would be better suited to the modern game just with the technical way that I played. But it's just you have to deal with what you have at the time. So don't compare then with now because it is different. And it's not fair. I mean, what Everton have got to beat now. Now, okay, I have to admit, Liverpool were a right good side then, right? They were. Arsenal were a decent team then. And you look at them and compare them to now. The teams at the top now, they're world teams now. Liverpool can buy anyone. Man United, Man City, Chelsea, they can buy anyone in the world, really. That wasn't the case back then. A lot of the best players were going to Italy, Spain, whatever. Now, you probably just get the very best of the best up the top. So if you're Everton now, what you're trying to catch is incredible. The money they've got. I mean, I watch Chelsea. I go to see Chelsea a lot. I cover them a lot. Their second team, honestly, second team is astonishing. Absolutely unbelievable. So it's difficult. And maybe that, to answer your question, pretending I knew where I was going all along, that's the problem. The problem with Everton at the moment. It's depth. It's strength and depth. If you get everyone available, I mean, I'll go back to the 5-2 game there recently, and 2-1 up with 11 minutes to go.
Yeah,
we win that game, and I think we go fourth.
Yeah,
I think we go fourth. We're 10 minutes away from fourth, but you lose that, and it kind of crumples there. Then you look who's missing. Dominic's not there. The Curry's missing for a few games. I mean, he's gigantic for us. I think he is anyway.
Yeah.
Mina's out. Richarlison's in and out some of the time as well. Whereas other teams, the top 3 or 4, they can cope with that because they've got enormous sort of reserves. Everton haven't got it, and it's a lot of people will talk about where it's the manager, and the easiest thing is to turn around and look at the manager. He needs time to develop that squad so it's bigger. And it can cope with these things that go wrong. And there's other players been missing as well, some we won't mention. And that's difficult because there only are a certain amount of real top quality players that we got at the club that are going to be able to survive at the very top echelons and push towards that top 6/4.
Yeah, it's been a weird start to the season for Everton. I think the losing Calvert-Lewin's been a huge blow. I think all of the trauma that we had in the summer with Carlo leaving and the way he left, and I actually thought we started the season really well this season, and as you rightly say, the depth has just sort of taken over. If you were the Everton manager, hypothetically now, what would be the areas you should look to strengthen? And equally, is there any players you think, do you know what, maybe Everton could go and attract that person?
It's really hard just now because when it comes to this transfer window, it's going to be one of the most mental transfer windows that you've ever had mid-season. I honestly think that. Villa are going to be all over everything. Newcastle are going to be all over everything. And that's who you're fighting with. These are teams that they're going to be throwing a lot of money at it. And they're going to be, so you're going to be battling them, and you're going to end up having to pay more for these players than they're worth, in all honesty. And so that's going to be a difficulty. But that's why you've got a manager in that hopefully knows that there are some players he'll have in his mind that he wants to get in some areas he knows that he wants to strengthen, and will now have to go and try and do that. Come back to what you said about the structure and the way the team looked. See, when you had Dominic and Richarlison up front, Demarai Gray coming for the wide area, I have to say Andros had a good start, didn't he?
Yeah.
Put the Curry in the middle there, and I'm thinking, I like that. I really like that. I mean, Alan, obviously, or Delph, or whoever you put in there, it's fine. Really like that. But as soon as you take one away, it kind of, you have to put Demarai Gray up front alongside Richarlison for the game against Wolves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You're thinking, not sure that's getting the best out of him. And suddenly it's imbalanced and it didn't look right. And that's the thing that's kind of really upsetting. It only takes 2, 1, 2, 3, and you've gutted the thing, and it doesn't look like the same power at all. I mean, can I say right now, I'm a massive fan of the skills of Demarai Gray. I think he's extraordinary skills, and I've watched him over the years, and I've often thought, you get the best out of him, get him in the right team, the right position, with the right sort of service, and you've got a special player. But not that many people have managed to do it. And I thought my heart sunk watching the first half against Wolves. And honestly, I mean, any Everton fan will tell you, that was bordering on traumatic.
It was, yeah.
It was, yeah.
I mean, it was hard. The 5-2 before it was hard to take, but it was weird, and you get weird things now and again. But that one, and I'll be honest with you, and I'm always brutally honest with these things. It's one of the few things, having watched Rafa over the years, I thought, what are you doing with those tactics?
Yeah.
I couldn't get it. I'm thinking, I'm watching this after 5 minutes thinking, right, okay, don't play 4-4-2 now. You're getting battered in the midfield. Not going to kick. Drop Gray into the midfield, leave one up front, and then just hold. And it took 45 minutes for it to be sorted. And that's not Rafa. I've watched Rafa for the years. I mean, remember, I'm covering Chelsea a lot of time. I watched Rafa down there. He's an extraordinarily good technical coach. Watch what he done in Newcastle. Newcastle's the closest team to where I live. So I get sent there quite a lot by 5 Live. And he never makes mistakes like that. And I have to say I was devastated, because I tell most people, look, you're delighted to have Rafa on board, because he is a technically exceptionally good coach. And then I'm watching him doing that, and I'm going, no, don't do that. And I know he's limited with it, the personnel he has, and he's bringing in players that, I'm not sure. Kabaman, is that how it was in it?
Yeah,
was fit, to go and play in that game. So you've got players out of position. You've got 3 wingers on the pitch. Richarlison's not 100% himself in that game, I don't think. And then you stick him in there he's just coming back, and you're thinking, it doesn't feel right. What you need to do is be solid. And it's not my style normally. Get Richarlison up front, turn around and get Gray back in and tighten up in the midfield. And it was to watch that almost capitulation in that first half. It was absolute torture. I don't think Rafa won't do that often, and with full squad, he won't do that at all. And the sadness is, if you could just keep in sort of touch with that kind of mid to top area, and then get to January, and then see what Rafa brings. Then we find out, and that's where my hope is just now. Get some good. But I'm sure you've all looked at it as well. The run of games between now and Christmas is hard.
It is so tough. I mean, you've mentioned Rafa there. It's probably a good place to ask you if you can rewind a little bit back to the summer with your Everton cap on. What did you make of Everton going for Rafa Benitez, someone who's got such strong red colours? There was a lot of controversy. Do you think, going back then, was it a good fit? Do you still think that now? How do you feel about the whole thing that Rafa Benitez manages Everton Football Club? Because there's certain ex-Everton personalities. Mr. Andy Gray was out there saying that he didn't agree with it quite vocally. Where do you stand with that?
I can give you the exact perfect corollary of what happened, because he went to Chelsea, and Chelsea fans hated him with a passion.
You're right.
They called him the fat Spanish waiter, all that sort of stuff. Really offensive. And I remember thinking, this guy is never going to win these people over, because he'd said things about Chelsea in the past. Chelsea and Liverpool had an absolute hatred between them. And I remember thinking, oh my God, don't do that. Rafa was fantastic at Chelsea. Absolutely fantastic. Now, he never became loved. I'll tell you what, he became respected. The fans will be turned around if he brings a good team and he brings a level of success. He got Chelsea the Champions League football when it looked as if they weren't going to get it. He won them the Europa League. But he got a respect because he just kept on saying and doing the right things. And he behaved with such dignity under massive pressure, huge amounts of abuse. I mean, they're singing it from the stands.
Yeah, I've seen the videos. Yeah.
On us. Yet there he stood, taking it, thinking, I'm still going to be doing my best for this club. And he did. And he did a good job for the club. So my thought is, it just happens sometimes. You know, you're looking around, and if you're the ownership, your job is to get the best man for the job, the best manager. And if it happens to be somebody who's got a past that doesn't suit you, sometimes you just have to swallow it and just say, no, if he's going to do the right job and you believe, you got to take it. It was a brave decision, I'll tell you, a right brave one. But because I'd watched it and lived it already with Rafa, I thought, actually, you know what? I think that'll be okay. And I still absolutely feel it'll be okay. But he needs to get to January, and he needs to be able to strengthen it with some depth there. Because if you start looking at what's above and then what Newcastle are going to become over the next wee while, and the other teams that are throwing money at it, it's a tough game. It's unbelievable. You're playing against nation states here. Some money they've got. Extraordinary. So I'm not saying Everton ain't skin, but it's a tough old ask. And you know, you ask any of the managers that can enter the job now, they know there's a level that's almost impossible to get to long term. And I've watched Moisey. You know, you probably know Moisey's a very good friend of mine. We've known each other since I was about 13. And I rate him unbelievably highly, and always did, and was kind of gutted. I know a lot of Everton fans had enough when he left. But he's actually doing it short term at West Ham, isn't he? Just now.
Brilliant. Great job.
He's doing down there. And that's the best you can hope for. And I'm kind of hoping over a short period of time that Rafa can get us back up there and get us close.
Pat, I'm really grateful for you coming on. I'm conscious of the time.
Can I say I've changed my wife was supposed to be doing Pilates. It's been cancelled. So if you need to speak anymore, it's
brilliant. Well, you'll have to thank your wife for us, because I did have a couple of questions I wanted to throw at you.
There's absolutely no rush. My wife was supposed to be, and she does it in this room with this computer, but it's been cancelled. So
there we go. Well, there you go, everyone. Touching on the amount of money Everton have spent over the last 5 years, and some of the players. Look, I'm not one of them. I say I'm not one of them, but I think it's very easy for a fan to criticise a player if they don't think they've done very well. But some of the money Everton have spent on players has clearly not worked. Klassen, Palazzi, to name Sandro Ramirez, to name just a few. Does it shock you how much money Everton have spent to essentially, in my opinion, and I think Melody would agree, go backwards? Because, you know, the team that spent at the start of this under Martinez, and when Mashiri walked in, had a John Stones, a Ross Barkley and a Romelu Lukaku up front. This team doesn't have that, and it's £500 million deep.
You're absolutely right. There's a lot of other fans of a lot of other teams that think they've spent money unwisely as well. There's usually a kind of hit rate that you want to get to. You're never going to get 100% right, because some players are good players and they get there, and for a vast number of reasons it doesn't work for them. And sometimes it's just the style of that team, and the new manager, a new coach doesn't suit them. There was that period where we seem to be buying number 10s every time there was one available, and you're thinking, well, could we not get other players at other positions? It was that weird period, but that often happens when new ownership comes in. It really is quite common. New ownership is desperate to impress everyone, so they throw money at the problem, and it's rarely works particularly well. What you need to get is good football people who do understand it and get the concept. And that's certainly the case, that there was money spent earlier on that, you know, it was just, and it wasn't balanced. It was so imbalanced. That was the kind of annoying thing about it. You could almost see where the imbalances were. But, you know, you got to draw a line under it. You just got to draw a line and you got to move on. It's a new era each time a manager comes in. Like yourself, I mean, our previous manager was just fabulous, and gutted he went. I was just so hopeful, and that was devastating. But, you know, to get another top quality manager in, you got to give him time. and you just got to give them funds again. But it's intelligent money spent. I mean, if you look at some of the money that other clubs have spent, Aston Villa are a team that a lot of people talk about have spent a gigantic amount of money, and look where they are right now. Look where they are. Some of the money was great, like John McGinn. You take him in a millisecond, and he costs buttons from Hibs. You need to be clever about that. And it's funny. I see players around. I do a lot of games abroad and a lot of games around the place. And now and again, I see players, and now and again I go and say to one or two clubs, look, you should get him, and they just blank me. And I remember telling a few people, because I'm a Hibs supporter, get him again, just get him. He'll cost you buttons, get him. And nobody would touch him. And it was the teams that I'd played for, and I was saying, like, go and have a look at him, and because it was Scottish, they wouldn't touch the account. And I think it doesn't matter if it's Scottish; it's something deeper than that. The other one, the most upsetting one was there was a player playing, and I went to Chelsea at the time. I just get that guy, just buy him. It cost you 10 million quid. It's a lot of money, but just get him. He's brilliant. And they went, oh, we've looked at him. He's not very good. And I went, okay. And I then went to a friend. I went to Boyz actually and said, look, get that guy. And he wouldn't touch him either. Anyway, eventually Southampton bought Van Dijk. And I'm sitting going, honestly, I'm telling the clubs that I used to play for, go and get him, he's really, really good. So, and over the years, I've just get fed up with it. I've just thought, there's a classic one happened in Scotland recently, which the guy who's the centre forward went down at Palace for Celtic. Edouard, right. And he scored quite early on, and everyone is excited about it. And I'm thinking, every Celtic fan would have paid his taxi fare from Glasgow to London, knowing that the guy that they've got coming in for a quarter of the price is twice the player. The guy's a hatchet. That's the guy you should be going for. And we kind of see it because we see it at a different level. So that's the kind of, there is quality out there, but you need to have your ear to the ground. You need to have a scouting system that's right. You need to be able, but see when you're a manager sometimes, how can you do that? You're concentrating on your team, your squad, your group. What you can do is you can take the best of people you've worked with before, and maybe that's the one area that Rafa will look through what he's worked with before, and maybe he'll get one or two that you think, oh, I'm not sure about them, but he'll know, no, that's what we need. But you won't be able to do it until January.
Maybe even past January, because the FFP is going to hinder us until we've got a number of big names who are out of contract. Next summer, I don't know whether Mike would agree. I think the level of manager Rafa Benitez will be shocked by the mismanagement that's happened before him. I think he probably looks back and looks at this squad, the lack of youth who are there to help the first team, the amount of first team players who probably aren't good enough to play for Everton Football Club. And I'm not saying that as an old supporter who's seen the good times. I'm just saying it because they don't work hard, because they don't offer anything really. Even the teams in the 90s, they would come off with a shirt stuck to them and you'd clap them off and say you ain't good enough today. And I think the manager now will be so shocked by the mismanagement before him.
You kind of look around the league now, and it's funny. As I say, I do a lot of games for a lot of teams, a lot of Premier League games, and it jumps out to you when one team's not fitter than the other. It's amazing how quick. I went to see Newcastle a bit recently. They're not fit enough. No. They're just not fit enough, and it's an extraordinary thing to say. Whereas you go and watch, as I say, the top ones, Chelsea. I mean, I'm not sure Man United look at the desire. No. They should have at that level. But you watch Liverpool, you watch Man City, you watch Chelsea, there's a whole bunch of clubs that go further down. I'll tell you what,
there's loads. There's Leicester, Leeds, there's lots.
And, it isn't age thing. It's making sure that these people have got that dynamism in them. And also, if you don't do it, you don't play. You absolutely don't play. And maybe that's the difficulty that some teams have had, that they've had players that, because the strength of the squad isn't deep enough, they've known, it doesn't matter if I don't have a couple of good games or I don't really put it in. I'm not talking specifically Everton here, but they know that I'll be playing next week. You've got to find yourself in a position where that isn't the case anymore. A, that, and B, you've got a manager who they believe in and they will work for. It sounds dead easy, but it doesn't always happen. I think Rafa's capable of doing that. I really do. But as you say, it might take some time. Now, you talk about the FFP, but that's when you're talking about buying players for 40 million, 50 million. All that. It might not be that. It might not be that. He's got links in places. I know it sounds strange, but there are loan players there, out there. I mean, you think, oh, Everton football, loan players. You go and have a look at Conor Gallagher and what he's doing at Crystal Palace. We can get loan players that are
absolutely
exceptional. That would do it, and that's where Rafa has to use his links, his history, the people he's known, what he's got in the game, and get these people. There's players playing in Spain and Italy at the moment that, because their clubs are desperate for money, absolutely desperate for money, they'll let good players out in the hope that they can sell them to that same club 6 months later. You need to work intelligently in these situations. As I say, if anyone buys in January, you're not going to get value for money. It's as simple as that. You ain't going to get it because there's too many in the market. So I think you need to look intelligently at it, and that's what we need to do. And we'll only know then.
Yeah.
Jam tomorrow.
No, it's just a difficult one when, you know, Everton have spent. I mean, I'm not singling out these players, but when you look at some of the transfer fees that we've paid on players like Iwobi, for example, I think you could probably put Michael Keane at 30 million in there as well. I think Klassen, 23 million, Tossen.
Keep going, Mike. Keep going. Morgan Schneiderlin, Gylfi Sigurdsson.
Yeah, it's scary to see the amount of money that as you say, Pat, spent on players, and you know when you say,
there wasn't joined up thinking at the time, though. That's the problem. You need joined up thinking. You need football people who are all working in the same way. It's a classic one of the modern football with some clubs, and I don't know how much it is at Everton. You need to be inside it, where the manager's not making the decisions on who to buy.
I find this whole director of football role ridiculous. I do personally,
because the director of football doesn't get sacked as the manager, and you're thinking, Now near the end of my career, I was player and chief executive at a club at the same time.
Yeah.
So as chief executive, I could do that. I could be director of football and do that sort of stuff. Not interested, not even slightly. Let the manager do that. It's his job. It's your gig, mate. You do it. And he did it, you know, and he to the level that I actually bought a player off Everton. There's a test for you. Who did I buy from Everton? I bet you don't know that one.
What year was that, Pat? Give me a clue. What year was it?
2002.
Yeah, around about 2001.
Was it Gary Naismith?
No, I'll put you out in this. It was Spenny, John Spencer.
Of course, yeah.
I took Spenny back. To be honest, he did a decent job for us and the rest of it. But we were at a time, you know, the owner asked me, and I said, "Don't ask me. I know Spenny. I played with him, you know, but ask the manager." But then again, manager was his brother-in-law, so that kind of helped. But you do need to look outside the box. And for every, you know, negative one, I still think Godfrey's been a phenomenal buy. I think he's a great buy. You know, and over the years, Richarlison's shown that he's got real qualities. You know, and you look through Doucouré, come on, that's a ball. To be honest, I still think he could be better than he is. That's the madness of it. You know, with what he's got, with the raw material that's there. So, you know, for the bad ones, there are good ones as well. You just need to get the strike rate up. And it's easy to say that, and it's hard to do that. I mean, I remember getting in James Rodriguez thinking, is that going to be another one? But I still want to see him. It was really, but he's more of same as the same before. You know, all these number 10s are kind of creative but not hard-working players.
Another number 10, yeah.
Exactly. There was millions of them. You just think, can we not balance this a wee bit? But I think there was a period then where it looked close to getting balanced. But it is really difficult. And I just thought, you know, that we were getting somewhere. But then you change the manager again through no fault of your own. And then you need to look at it again and get a different type of balance. Because as soon as Rafa comes in, he's going to think, right, him, no, him, no, him, no. And he's just going to do that because that's what managers do. But then you find yourself needing to go then strengthen, and you find yourself a little bit threadbare. but it shouldn't be a short-term issue, because the problem is everybody wants it to happen tomorrow. You've been wanting it to happen tomorrow for too long. You need to set
Mate, it should have been yesterday. Never mind tomorrow. I've been waiting so long. Pat,
well,
when you signed for the club in 1988, let's put it this way, we've won one trophy since then.
Yeah, and it's hard because we came very close. I mean, it was very, very close. But after that, it got harder and harder because other teams just got wealthier and stronger, and that was very, very difficult. And I know I keep on talking about the money, but have a look at the value of clubs and have a look at how many trophies they win, and it's direct correlation most of the time.
I agree. I agree. I think what you've said there, Pat, about working in football. If you take your football fan head off and put you've worked in football, do you think, looking from the outside in, or maybe you've got another perspective, that there's too many people at Everton Football Club making decisions? There's too many chefs in the kitchen. We have a chairman, we have an owner, we have a director of football, and a head coach.
Yeah, the short answer is damn yes. Hell yeah. As I say, I might go back to, if I was running a club, I was chief executive. The chairman was trying to tell the manager what to do, and I'm going, what do you know? I was able to say to the chairman, you know nothing in comparison to that guy. And it was very, very strange. I wouldn't even tell the manager what to do because I didn't want to be manager. No, that's what you want to do. That's how you. If you want my advice on something, ask me and I'll tell you what I think. Yeah. But if you don't. And you have your group of people who you want to run. I'm not going to force people on you because you need your people there. And I was very, very strong about it. It was a very funny thing. Again, I'm going to throw one at you. It's going to kill you here. When I took over, when I went there and I was a player, it's very weird to be player and chief exec, because the manager's above me and he's below me, right? So he can drop me, which he bloody well did, annoyingly, or put me on the bench, back and sack him. But I always made it clear to him, I am the only guy that can't walk into your office and say, I should be playing. Because I've told you, I trust you to do the job. So I couldn't do that. But I stuck with it and never, ever moved it. But I let him make his decisions. And one of the tricky things within that is to know who to listen to and who not to listen to. And that's difficult, where the power is within any club. And it comes from strange areas. I mean, funnily enough, I looked at my dressing room at the time and thought, there's guys in that dressing room, I'm thinking, bloody hell, they seem to really know what they're talking about. Really. Turns out 3 of them became Premier League managers in the English Premier League from that wee dressing room in Motherwell, which is astonishing. So I was thinking, am I sort of rose-tinted glasses? In actual fact, I wasn't. Actually, they knew their stuff, these guys. Yeah. And by the way, that's the question.
So the Motherwell dressing room, 3 players, was
one Boyz.
Boyz, is it? No, okay. Was one Jim Jeffries?
No, you probably won't get him because one of them was the manager I chose, which is Billy Davis, and he went on to manage in the Premier League for a short period of time. The other one was Owen Coyle was there forward, and he became a good enough manager to manage in the Premier League. The last one was absolutely brilliant. He was playing centre midfield. He wasn't quite doing it for us. Because the rough and tumble of the Scottish game, he was just too classy in midfield. But he's a great guy, and him and I became great friends, even though we were both playing. But I was chief exec, and I just thought this guy was the bee's knees. I really loved him, and I thought he would go on and do well. And I think Roberto Martinez did go on and do quite well.
Of course, Martinez.
So it's extraordinary, isn't it? What a story it is to have that kind of level of people around. But you still have to trust in the manager and trust it. And see, when you don't trust in the manager to make decisions, get a new manager. And if you need help,
that's what we do. That's what we do all the time.
the thing that's been a bit of an issue, I think, as well for Everton is, as much as we've said about the board and Farhad Moshiri, when he came in, he appointed a football man. He actually went out and spent money on the chief scout from Leicester, who had literally just won the Premier League in Steve Walsh, and it's almost like Steve Walsh and Ronald Koeman had just a little bit of a mind block, because they went from signing Mahrez at £500,000 and Vardy at 2 million to bringing Sigurdsson, Rooney, and Klaassen in all in the same window and destroying all of the pace in our midfield. Because I used to play for Birmingham City until I broke my knee in a tackle when I was 16. Ended my career before it started. But when you look over, you look at your team and you want pace. You want people who are prepared to carry the ball and scare teams. And the only player that Everton had, in my opinion, at that point who could genuinely carry the ball and scare teams was Leighton Baines. And I think Ademola Lookman coming in that January or the summer.
Coleman to a degree as well with Fire.
And Coleman, yeah. It was very weird, the setup that Koeman went for at Everton. And I genuinely do believe he sent us back years. And I don't know how close you are to Ronald, but
I'm not.
It didn't work. It definitely didn't work what he did at Everton.
Some of the things that they look on paper as if they work, but it's not the right fit. It's funny, the understanding in that wide left-hand side with Baines. And who was playing in front of him?
Steve Pienaar.
Before then, yeah.
The understanding between them two was, I mean, honestly, I just fully just got it, because I had quite a few times in my career I had understandings with fullbacks that is exactly the same as that. Yeah. And you kind of were unstoppable when you did it right. And there was a period then, and then there was a change. I mean, when you want Baines and Coleman to fly forward, what you need is someone like Pienaar or whatever who's got intelligence in front of you. What you don't buy in front of them is a runner, just a runner. Because you've now killed them two. Because they're not going to run past anymore, because they ain't going to get the ball. Because you've not got an intelligent player in front of them who will create space and lay them in. And there was a period of time where, when Pienaar was going, etc., and you're thinking, right, okay, this is really important because you don't want to spoil this, because this is where Everton's strengths are. And then all the wrong people come on, and you just thought, what? Don't. And as somebody who played in that position, I could see what was happening. And when Theo, whatever Theo was, he wasn't that type of player.
No.
He was almost the epitome of the wrong type of player to play there. It was actually stopping the fullback. Funny enough, things like that happen. Here's a strange analogy, which is not unlike it, right? See from the outside, again, you need to think of your age. England had their golden generation, or the last golden generation, with Gerrard, Lampard, Beckham, Scholes, all the rest of it. Right, brilliant, great. Never won anything. And everyone couldn't figure out how you can get that midfield. It's just packed with world-class players working. The problem is so obvious to a lot of us outside it, going, well, why are you playing Beckham? He just stands there and he kills all the space. You need somebody who goes and stretches it, that allows space to develop for Lampard and Gerrard, because they are brilliant and they create space and they move into space, but they won't go anywhere if they're two wide guys, and they didn't have a left winger because they didn't have anywhere left wing, so they killed all the space. Now you've got great players, but you need great players that are actually well cross some balls, and you remember them. He just killed everybody else's space. And it doesn't make sense unless you've played inside that sort of thing and you know what's happening. And I've seen too many times with Everton where you think, why are you buying him? He might be okay, but he's absolutely wrong for the people around him. Yeah. And you will only know that if you are a football person who's been inside it, who understands the strengths and weaknesses of players. And that takes time. That doesn't happen in 6 months. Whereas new managers come in and all they want to do is get 5 new players in, and you just think, no, develop it. Of course, who wants to wait? And that's where I've got some hope for Rafa, that he's seeing it, he's watching it, he's learning the capabilities. He knows that, various players are going to come up like Anthony Gordon. What's he going to do? What's he going to be? Is he going to grow into whatever? And he'll maybe see where that raw talent may fit in well within the group, but it might take a wee while. And that's my big hope. I'm just gutted just now because there's just too many important players have been injured too often so far this season, and it's going to be hard to stay in touch with the link with the run we've got between now and Christmas.
Good. Last question from me, Pat, because I appreciate you've got to go on to your Thursday. I've actually got football tonight, so. But last question from me. I don't know if Millsy's got another one for you, but what's your relationship like with Everton now?
It's really interesting. Every now and again, I get asked to come up and to chat to people in the boxes and things like that. But it's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. There's still a lot of people work at Everton who are there now that when I was there.
Yeah.
And it's just a joy to see them because they were nothing more than fabulous to me, to my family. But more specifically, and I do say this, and this is kind of important, I do try and say it to any Everton fans when I talk to them. What people don't understand is my dad used to come down, never missed a game in my career just about. I mean, I played 850 professional games. He probably missed 30, right? It was amazing how many games he got to. And he was a working man. But his times travelling down to Goodison and he's no longer with us, and were among the happiest times in his life. Because he'd come down and he'd meet the people at the club and he would have the crack with the fans, and he loved the Scouse humour and he loved everything about the place. Well, one thing he didn't like, but everything he absolutely loved. And it was a joy, an absolute joy to be there. So when I go back to Everton now, it's just, I walk in with a big smile on my face because I just love being back in that place.
Awesome.
And it feels like home. It does feel like a home, one of my homes. I must say, I feel the same about Chelsea, although it's getting a bit corporate now. Tranmere, I love that place with passion. It's a great, I love that club. But certainly Everton, you see, what do I feel about the club? Well, the club's the fans. So I think you know what I feel about the fans.
Yeah. So what's the one thing your dad didn't like, or are you not allowed to tell me?
So I signed for Chelsea early in my career.
Yeah.
And then went to Everton. And then after that was Tranmere. And then after that I went to Kilmarnock after that.
Yeah.
My dad is a Celtic supporter and wears green and white scarves. The one thing he can't wear is a blue and white scarf. And every team I bloody well played for was blue and white. Now I'm comfortable with the fact that in England, I'm a blue, and in Scotland I'm green, right? I get that. But my dad, we're wearing a blue and white scarf. It's like you wearing a red and white one. You know, you just it just doesn't feel right. So it was the one thing. He was delighted to sing for Everton, but he was just going, oh God, I can't wear the scarf again. Although I have got a picture of my dad wearing a blue and white scarf going to the cup final, which is that showed you how much he must have fallen in love with the club. He didn't put it on until he left Glasgow, right enough, but you know.
The moment he crossed the border,
you can be blue and white. So, but everything else apart from that was, and that's why when you can hear, I smile when I talk about my times at Everton and how welcome it was made, and it's no different now. And when I go in now, I'll meet Snods or Sharpie or whoever's hanging about. Sometimes Colin, who
legend, absolute legend,
Colin,
absolute legend.
Possibly, certainly the nicest, but maybe the best man I ever met in football. Maybe the best man I ever met in football, and that's considering where I've been and who I've worked with and the amount of people you've worked with. There's nobody I like better than him, and. It absolutely broke my heart that Colin Harvey couldn't bring to Everton what he wanted to bring as manager. Given a bit more time, I think he would have, but it's just the business, you know.
You should see him, Pat, at the ground. He's still at the ground on a match day, and he's shaking supporters' hands. He's signing autographs. He's great with the kids. He is Everton Football Club for me, Colin Harvey. He is everything that's good about that football club.
I mean, absolutely 100%, and he's still. He kind of bleeds it. And in my book, there's a lot of stories about Colin. A lot of stories about Colin.
Yeah, I've read them.
I know, and it's just lovely. And there's not one negative moment. There's one phone call I made to him and I didn't understand why he was being slightly cold. And I thought, that was a bit weird after he'd been sacked. And I thought, he seemed a bit odd there. Well, I didn't know that he was going to be announced as the new assistant manager again the next day. And he couldn't tell me. Back in smiling the next morning. And I was like, okay, I get it. Right. So, man, him, his family, just the nicest people you'll ever meet in the world.
Oh, it's what a show this has been. Mike's given me an open invite to ask maybe the final question. The only thing I could ask is this is an Everton podcast. It's going to be watched by thousands of Evertonians. Do you have a message for the Evertonians who supported you over the years who are watching this now?
Yeah, I hope, and I know that the Everton fans knew that the work rate, the effort, what we were trying to do in my time, and what I certainly was trying to do myself, was the right things. And there's a purity about Everton fans that love good football. So that's kind of partially the reason why I was kind of accepted. I just really wish that I expected to come in and be player of the year because I'd been that in my last club. And that's the thing that if they didn't get every bit of... I mean, I then left and went to Tranmere and had 4 of the best years of my career. I played more games for Tranmere, for Scotland, than I did in the rest of my career put together. So I hadn't lost it as a player. I still was it. And that's the only sadness is that there's no enmity between me and Everton other than I wish I could have done more.
Well, from myself, and I'm pretty sure I echo it from Millsy and equally the thousands of Everton fans that are watching, Pat, it has been an absolute pleasure to spend the last 50 minutes talking to you. I really, really, really appreciate the insight, and you just get to know Everton Football Club a little bit better when you speak to former players who have been in it and know it. So thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and just keep on supporting the club. It's a good thing. Good things will come back. They will.
Well, guys, that is everything from me and Millsy and our special guest tonight, Pat Nevin. Thank you all for watching. The link for Pat's book is in the description below. Of course, across the bar podcast, their description for their YouTube channel is also in the description below. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and like. And we will see you soon, everyone. Bye.